It's lovely, thank you. And that's on record, and we have live to Facebook. I'm really hoping the internet stays with me.
I was thinking about that.
So I'm going to go. I know. I'm going to go gender justice first, Ange, and then next to Ace Ladies Network. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds great.
Perfect. Live streaming preview now. There we go. Don't worry, I've got about 3 different backup options, Ange, if it doesn't work in terms of what Rob and Sophie had for. All my passwords are everywhere.
You guys are amazing. I love it.
Backup options.
Mm-hmm. So many options.
Go right. One moment, please, caller. Cross post more pages. Boom. Right, I think 3, 2, 1. Right, ladies, I believe that we are now live.
Right. Kia ora, welcome everybody to the first of the Gender Justice Q&A about gender equity in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is our quick fire round of questions. All about gender equity. Who we have with us tonight, we have Carmel Cepoloni, who is the Labour spokesman for women, and also the Labour spokesperson for women, excuse me, and also the Minister of many, many things. And also we have Joy Waipole, who is here representing the Gender Justice Collective. I'm going to throw to you now, Joy, pretty quickly, because we've got a lot of questions that we've both crowdsourced, but we've also taken from our YouTube survey, which we had over 3,500 people respond to. So take it away, ladies.
Kia ora, Ange. Whaatalo whaatu ma le whaalaalo I lau awhionga le whaipule Carmel Cepoloni. Talofa lava. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe Minister. Thanks again for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have this discussion with you.
Talofa lava, Joy. Thank you for having me be part of this conversation.
Awesome. I guess I'll just jump straight to the questions. We've got quite a few awesome questions from the survey, as Ange has pointed out. So firstly, what do you think are the top 3 issues facing women and non-binary people in Aotearoa today?
I think, firstly, I'd need to say gender-based violence, gender auditing, and having the information and data that we need to be able to inform the decisions that we make, as well as monitor progress that is made or not made. And then alongside that, we can't ignore the pay equity issues that still exist as well. So those would be the top 3. And under all of those 3 would be multiple layers that would probably take a long time to unpack, but I think they're pretty good starting points.
For sure. Yeah, well, that leads to the next question regarding the first issue that you've raised. What is the Labour Party's plan to eradicate violence against women and girls in our nation?
Well, you know, I will start by saying that I think that we've worked really effectively in government alongside our coalition partner New Zealand First, and also our confidence and supply partner, the Green Party, And we did move very quickly to set up the joint venture, which has been led by Undersecretary Jan Logie, but supported by multiple ministers and ministries, including myself as the Minister for Social Development. So we knew that we needed to look at this very serious issue that plagues our country and has a particular impact on women in particular. And we did move quickly. You know, in the first year that we got in, we saw significant investment across the joint venture, across the ministries. There was much going on, but I had a obviously keen eye on what was happening in the Ministry for Social Development as the Minister for Social Development. So immediately we saw a $76 million increase in that first year. We also then, the following year, saw a significant funding increase to address sexual violence and to support programs to address sexual violence harm. We saw more funding at the most recent budget, not only with regards to base rate funding, but also in response to COVID, because we knew that COVID was potentially going to have an impact on family sexual violence in this country. But we also have taken a very important, I think, intersectional view of what's happening in the gender-based violence space. We've seen increased funding to prevention programs, specifically programs like Pacifica Proud and E Tu Whānau. And so the resourcing has seen significant increases, which is important. But as I said at the beginning, that kind of cross-agency, more coordinated approach that we're attempting to achieve through the joint venture is very deliberate and has been called for a long time from those working in and across the sector. Much more to do, not going to pretend that we've achieved everything that we want to achieve or that we've resolved all of the issues that we face in this country with regards to gender-based violence. But I think a very good first term to lay the platform for some significant change moving forward.
Yeah, you mentioned the work that you've done with, that you and the Labour Party have done with your confidence and supply partner. We know Jan Logie was Undersecretary for the Minister for Justice. Is Labour prepared to give this position far more power in the next government, given that we're at the top of the OECD for violence against women?
Well, look, I don't think it's about positions having power. I think it's about an all of government response and making sure that all of government takes it seriously. So the way in which this has been set up, you have multiple agencies that have a role in funding, resourcing, addressing family violence, and the joint venture has really brought that together. You know, if I look at the Ministry for Social Development and the role I've played, I was very fortunate to have the Minister, Portal Williams, step into this space and become my associate and immediately move to give her the delegation for family and sexual violence in MSD because of her previous experience working in the sector. And I wanted there to be a dedicated minister whilst I could support her as the primary minister for social development. But it is never going to be about one person's role. You have to have a commitment from all of government to addressing this and taking this seriously. And I think that we've shown we had that in the term that's just gone. And we continue to be committed to continuing the good work and efforts if we are fortunate enough to get re-elected.
Yeah, that's really cool to see a cross-sectoral collaboration happening across the government. I understand a recent request by Julianne Genter for Treasury to apply a gender lens to the budget allocation was denied. Will the Labour Party prioritise the implementation of gender mainstreaming to all of government?
Look, we certainly are committed to gender auditing. I mean, we've talked about the need for better transparency around equity for women across organisations and to make sure that we can monitor progress for women. With regards to what you're asking about with gender mainstreaming in the Treasury, I actually went to Ringrant just before I did this interview tonight, just to have a discussion with him about it, because we actually haven't had a talk. And so I won't go so far as to try and justify what Treasury has done. or to explain it away, or to even propose something moving forward. But I am interested to explore what discussions took place with respect to that not occurring in this term.
Thank you for that.
I didn't get Grant on the phone, by the way.
Otherwise, I had to call him up and ask. Another key issue which was highlighted by the survey was economic independence for women. And given the intersection of poverty, caring responsibilities, underemployment, and we've also got systemic sexism and racism, what plans do the Labour Party have to improve all women's economic independence, but particularly wahine Māori?
Well, I've had the privilege of being the Minister for Social Development for the last term, and we started some really important work, but we certainly haven't finished it. But if we just reflect on, say, one group that are supported through the welfare system, which is sole parents, the largest proportion of which, of course, are women, particularly Māori women. If we look at some of the changes that we've brought into place, sole parents, since we were elected 3 years ago, are actually around about $101 better off because of some of the changes and what has occurred over the last term. If we look at the introduction of the Best Start payment, that benefited women, winter energy payments, superannuitants and beneficiaries, 59% of beneficiaries are women. We've seen changes to the abatement thresholds. We did see benefit increases. We saw indexation of benefits to wages. So all of that did increase women, but that's only in the, it did benefit women. But that's only in the welfare system, and there is more to do. I've never shied away from that. Changes that aren't always as obvious to the public as making a disproportionate difference to the lives of women are things like even lifting the minimum wage. I think something like 63% of those on the minimum wage are women, or so there is a higher proportion of women on the minimum wage. So the fact that we have lifted it, and we would be moving to lift it to $20 an hour in April next year, would benefit more women. Things like the rollout of the living wage to the core public sector disproportionately benefits women. I think it was the 70% of those that benefited from that shift were actually women. But there is more to do. And even if we just look outside of even some of the obvious, like some of the ones I've mentioned, if we look at the fact that we repealed the family funded care legislation, and we see that makes a positive difference in the lives of women, because women are more likely to be in those carer roles, and so to benefit from the changes that we put into place. The Equal Pay Amendment Bill, the passing of that was hugely significant. So that's one of the more obvious changes. And then on top of that, increases in remuneration for sectors that are dominated by women, teaching, nursing, teaching assistants. And so, there have been significant changes, and we're committed to continuing with those changes. As I said earlier, I think this is another area where some very important platforms have been laid down, including the passing of the Equal Pay Amendment Bill. And so that really allows us to make even further progress if we're given the opportunity to be re-elected.
You've mentioned so many good topics there. I'll just pull out a few. So one of our survey results also showed that 72% of respondents want paid parental leave available for both parents. What policy does the Labour Party have to make this a reality?
Oh, look, I don't think at this stage we've got a policy per se, but I am very proud of the fact that we were able to extend paid parental leave to 26 weeks. And I do acknowledge the many women out there that were part of the action that made that happen, including a former colleague of mine, Sue Moroney, who was very, very staunch in this space. It doesn't mean that we've reached the height of where we need to get to with paid parental leave. I think we'd all accept that, and that changes may need to be made moving forward. But I don't think I'm in a position right now to speak to specifically what you're asking about. So I won't try and
answer that
you
one.
know, I won't try and speak around it for another 6 minutes and not answer the question that you've asked directly.
Thanks, appreciate it. Very cool that we're both Pacifica women. I think it was probably about 2 days ago, from approximately 2 days ago, the average Pacifica woman is effectively working for free until the end of the year compared to average Pākehā male wage. And you've mentioned, you know, there's a big gender equity, pay equity is still a really big problem. Yeah, what are your plans to address this stark ethnic pay gap that intersects with the gender pay gap?
So some of what we've already spoken about, I guess, applies to this. You know, lifting the minimum wage is going to be important, continuing to see the rollout of a living wage across those, to those also who are contracted to the public sector. The public sector does need to lead by example with regards to reasonable pay rates, but also extending those opportunities for upskilling and training to Pacific, and I will also say Māori women. You know, we need to be encouraging and incentivising Pacific and Māori women to get higher level qualifications so that they are able to earn more. And that is certainly what we have come into this election talking about. A couple of weeks ago, I announced that we will be reinstating the training incentive allowance so that those sole parents who are on benefit are able to access up to $4,500 a year support in the study. Enjoy, on the day that I announced, I actually had a talanoa with a few women that were here. 2 of them were Pacific. Both of them had received the training incentive allowance when they were studying because it was still in place then. Both of them have completed their degrees. But I invited them to talk because I was mostly interested about the fact that they are living proof of the research that's out there that actually a child's level of education is strongly determined by their mothers. They had their children with them as well, who are now all at university. And they saw their mothers and were inspired by their mothers when their mothers went through university, and now here they are getting degrees themselves. So I think that they were a walking example of why that investment is really important. So as well as making sure that we pay those who are in lower paid jobs better, we also need to be providing support for those women to be able to take up upskilling and training opportunities so that they can get into higher paid jobs and also, you know, support themselves and their families better and serve as that inspiration to their children as well to perhaps go on and aspire to higher level education too.
Thank you. Let's talk about health. Every other high-income country has a separate agency or task force to focus on women's health. New Zealand doesn't have this, nor has it conducted a specific women's health needs assessment. What measures does the Labour Party have in place to ensure a needs assessment is conducted into women's health?
Into women's health in terms of a needs assessment, that is not something that has come to my attention. I think perhaps, you know, having been associate ministers of health, people like Julian Genter and Minister Salisa might be over the detail of that more than perhaps what I would be. But I will say that, you know, we have seen some significant investments into the women's health space. I think it was $242 million that we saw invested into maternity care, and that was an area that had been significantly underfunded for a long period of time. At the health announcement that the Labour Party made the other day, Minister Hipkins, our Minister of Health, talked about the need for more beds with respect to women that have had babies that are experiencing mental health issues. And the fact that that type of support has not been in place and has been significantly underfunded. And so that is an area that we intend to focus on. And so there is certainly much more to do here. And I think that some of the things that we've done to date signal the fact that we do take it seriously. And I think announcements like Minister Hipkins made the other day signal that we are going to continue on that track.
Yeah, I think that kind of comes back to the gender audit. You know, are there specific health needs that women, Māori, Pacifica women in particular, disabled women, you know, are there specific needs that they have that we don't know about? There's a lot of anecdotal stories about it, but you know, if we're not doing this audit, then we don't know.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Joy. So, I mean, I can't even sit here tonight and pretend that I have all the answers. And, you know, and it does highlight that there are issues with gender auditing. And so we do need to continue to make sure that we collect information, that we measure progress. And we haven't done enough of that to date. And so we do need to commit to doing more of that in the next term.
Cool, thank you. Next question. What are you doing to improve access to gender affirming healthcare for gender diverse people and particularly non-binary people?
Well, you know, we have seen the increase in operations that will be available in New Zealand for gender reassignment, and that's been really important. You know, still not a significant number, but significantly more than what we were offering previously. So I think that's a step in the right direction. Gender auditing is still an issue here too, Joy. I don't think we're collecting enough information to actually be able to determine what the real needs are. You know, I think all government agencies need to be doing this better. It's been good to see that MSB now includes on all of their forms, not just a tick box for female or a male, but also for gender diverse, so we can try and collect more information. But I think, you know, until we have that information, then we are largely guided by anecdote. Can I say too, just on this, in terms of the information and gender auditing, there will be a report that comes out in the next few weeks from Growing Up in New Zealand study. And I think some of the information in there reminds us of how seriously we need to take this. Something like 1.6% of the children that are part of that study say that they don't relate or identify to the gender that they were assigned when they were born. And about 14% say that they lie somewhere between being a girl or a boy. And so that type of information on children is going to be crucial to determining what decisions we make moving forward, not just in the health system, but in the education system, in the welfare system, in the social service system, across the board. And so we do need to be able to collect better information. I'm glad to see some of that coming through.
Awesome. A big question. In the absence of naming men as agents in gender equity, this keeps falling back on women. What is the Labour Party going to do to ensure the role of men in improving women's issues is addressed?
The role of men.
I'm thinking, I know it's a bit of a tough one, thinking kind of about like harmful stereotypes about masculinity and its role in like violence and control of women and non-binary and, you know, also, and other men also.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, it starts in our schools really, as well as in our homes, but also, you know, we've got much more control over the programs that we roll out in schools. So it has been good to see that there has been increased funding to bullying in schools. And some of that has been specifically around inclusion and ensuring that there is an understanding for the diversity of students that are in schools, whether that be ethnicity, whether that be gender diversity, sexuality, religion, a range of different things. So that's a really important starting point. Sometimes it's very difficult to get inside people's homes and change some of the messages that they are getting there, and in some instances that could potentially be damaging, but we do have control over what we teach in our schools. And so making sure that we are investing in those healthy relationship programs and anti-bullying programs, positive, like I said, relationships, then that's a really important investment for any government.
Thank you. Conscious of the fact we don't have much time, so I'll ask one last really important question. What song lyric do you think best describes New Zealand woman?
Oh, wow. What about Who Runs the World? Beyonce. I mean, we've got a pretty primo Prime Minister at the moment. So I think that that's an appropriate song for us.
Love it. I was also thinking about Beyonce lyrics myself.
Thank you. I think that's a great place to end, quoting Beyonce. Thank you so much, Minister Sepuloni, for joining us tonight. Thank you so much to Joy. Next Thursday night, we're going to be speaking with Jan Logie from the Green Party. We invite everybody to send in their questions and to follow the Gender Justice Collective. We'll also be this week releasing the top line results from our survey, which we'd love to share with you, Minister Sepuloni, as they are extremely interesting. And again, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to hear what the Labour Party is planning, and it's really encouraging to know that the foot is not off the gas on this one yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone that's tuning in as well.
Have a
Thanks all.
Ka kite.
great day.